Welcome to this course titled Globalization Theoretical Perspectives. I am Santosh, faculty in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Madras. I teach sociology. I once again very heartily welcome all of you to this course. And I know that there are students in this group, there are teachers, there are people who are preparing for competitive examinations. There are also quite a lot of people, general public, who have enrolled in this course in order to expand your knowledge about the subject matter this particular course has to offer. So I know that your expectations are varied, your objectives are varied. The reasons why you have enrolled for this particular course are very different, could be very different interest, and I may not be able to fulfill all of your objectives or able to cater to all of your needs, but I will try my level best to to present a balanced course so that all of you will find something interesting in this particular course. So I have titled this as Globalization Theoretical Perspectives. I thought about the title for a long. I wanted to I wondered whether I should use the term sociology in this particular title. Later I decided against that because most of the theories that we are going to discuss are from the discipline of sociology. In fact, some of the very fascinating theories on globalization are formulated by sociologists. And it is not only that I am a sociologist or I come from the background of sociology. Globalization theory is mostly sociologically influenced, or you will find quite a lot of influential sociological theories in the study of globalization. So this is the very first class, and I just want to give you a very broad overview of the course in this particular class. Want to talk some general things about the nature of the course, the different chapters, the important themes and speakers or scholars whom we are going to discuss. And also I want to introduce you to some of the important textbooks as well as reference books which we will be using. So this is a very, it's a short session. I just want to invite you again personally and to give you some broad overview on the course. So the title, teaching globalization, the challenges, I have framed it in that way. So I want to communicate, or I want to rather tell you that teaching this theme on globalization is not a very easy thing. It's rather, it has quite a lot of challenges. Okay, why that? Why do I want to say that? That a course on globalization theories, it's rather challenging for me as a teacher as well as for you as students. It's quite different from other kind of conventional topics. For example, I had another course titled Classical Sociological Theories, and I could handle that course with much more easiness, or with much more with far more levels of comfort in comparison with a theme like globalization, because there is already substantial body of knowledge exists about classical sociological theory. There's a huge amount of literature already written. There's some kind of a concrete shape has already go to that particular subject matter, and I only need to really follow those established syllabus or established methods that are adopted in most of the universities. But globalization is a more recent phenomenon, and there are, let us look at what are the important reasons why I say so, that the kind of difficulties associated with this particular course. So I'm saying this not to kind of dissuade you or to frighten you or to tell you that it's a very difficult course, but what we are going to discuss is slightly at an advanced stage of social science theories. So I would expect some kind of familiarity, some brief familiarity on some of the basic concepts of sociology and social theory. This is not a preliminary level or a basic level course, it's a slightly higher level course. And first and foremost, globalization as a phenomenon or as a process, however you want to name it, it's a multi-dimensional and a multidisciplinary field. Okay, we are talking about a very complex, extremely complex process. Okay, and you will see that there is hardly any consensus about it among the scholars, even in the whole idea of definition. Okay, how can we define globalization? There is hardly any consensus. There is hardly any definition about whether is this globalization is something quite different from that of the previous times. Okay, are we seeing something very different? Are we experiencing something quite novel? Okay, are we experiencing something quite unprecedented? Again, there is not much of a consensus about these issues. So we are looking at a theme, or globalization is such a fraught topic. It is such a complicated topic. It's such a complex process, such a complex topic. Of course, involving complex process, complex ideas, complex visualizations of that, complex conceptualizations coming from a kind of its multidimensionality. Okay, this is not, globalization is not something that can be captured from only from a kind of a sociological perspective. Okay, economists will not be able to give you a complete picture about globalization. Political scientists will fail as well. Okay, or scholars of international relations will fail. Philosophers will fail to give you a comprehensive picture on what exactly is globalization. So it's a multi-dimensional process. Okay, it's a multi-dimensional process. It's a multi-dimensional phenomenon that we are talking about. A phenomenon, a process that leaves nothing untouched. Almost every aspect of human life. Okay, your personal life, your social institutions, your ideas, your exposure. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing that is untouched by the process of globalization. So that itself it adds to the complexity of this whole process, and that is why it's a multi-dimensional process, and it is also a multidisciplinary field. The knowledge, the scholarship that is produced about globalization has been produced by scholars from so many different fields, starting from anthropologists to philosophers to sociologists to political scientists to cultural studies scholars to feminist scholars. So you will find scholars from every field have written extensively about globalization. So it becomes a challenge for me, or for any teacher for that matter, to be judicious in terms of picking up what is important for a course, also keeping in mind the overall orientation of the course and the kind of students that one gets to teach. So this subject matter, unlike many other subject matter which are much more strictly defined or much more clearly defined, this globalization is much more broad, it is more amorphous, it is more kind of a nebulous kind of a concept, and lack of consensus on key areas. That's what I was mentioning earlier. Okay, starting with the definition, whether it is something new or what is the impact of globalization. Is the globalization come to an end? Are we going back? Or what would be the nature of globe after some 20 or 30 years? Okay, or what are the implications of globalization? Is it good for the national economy? Is it good for the poor? Is it good for the women? So there are a host of issues. Okay, there are a host of issues where there is hardly any consensus. Okay, there are a host of issues where there is hardly any consensus. So it again adds complexity to the whole thing. Whether how do I strike a balance between so much of competing kind of claims? Okay, so what are the scholars whom do I accept, I incorporate in the syllabus, and who are the scholars whom I need to leave out? Again, it's a complicated scenario, and it's a nascent field, emerging scholarship. Maybe the most substantive body of knowledge about globalization is only some 2-3 decades old, not more than that, maximum 3 decades, and 3 decades is not a substantive period when you look into the history of disciplines. Okay, and a host of new nascent fields are emerging within this larger framework of globalization. For example, what is the most recent development in terms of globalization? Are we witnessing a deglobalization? Is the globalization leading towards a crisis? That's the kind of indication that we are getting. So there are, scholarly works are being produced every day, trying to theorize, trying to make sense of, trying to improvise the previous scholars. So it's a very lively, very vibrant intellectual field. Okay, spread across every field. You will have globalization and religion, globalization and education, globalization and sports, globalization and you name it, any field. You will find literature connecting with globalization to any substantive field that you are interested in. So it's a very huge platform. It's a huge, it's a huge landscape that we are supposed to deal with. So that is because of that very reason. We will have to be very judicious about what to include and what not to include. And adding to all these complexities, the final point, that is a politically and ideologically charged scholarship. Okay? You know that most of the social science literature, they don't claim to be neutral, or they don't claim to be completely objective. Okay? They don't pretend to be as if they don't have any ideological or political leanings. Okay? They do that because they know that all such claims are pretentious. Okay? You can't have a scholarship, a scholarly position without being influenced by ideological or political inclinations, and there's nothing wrong in that. Okay? We are not talking about a time when social scientists claimed that what they are presenting is the truth. Okay? We are not talking about a time when social scientists claim that what they are saying is objective. Okay, they went by this term objectivity. Now this term objectivity is heavily criticized. Okay, so because of this very reason, what is your approach towards globalization? Okay, are you a supporter of globalization, or are you a critic of globalization? What kind of ideological platform that you use? What are your ideological inclinations? All these things really muddle this particular field. And that is why it becomes even more difficult for us to kind of strike a balance in terms of these competing ideological and political claims and affinities towards this whole particular subject matter. Now, as I mentioned, we will be having this course from a sociological perspective. Okay, when I am talking about sociological perspective, I am using it in the most broader sense of the word, because we know that you can't have a course or you can't have a globalization theory strictly within the confines of sociology. That's impossible, because the subject matter that it's supposed to explain is multidimensional, it's multidisciplinary, it requires multidisciplinary explanation. So you can't have a very narrow definition of sociology. So the kind of sociological approach that I am adopting is a much broader term. Okay, it's a much broader term. I will talk about the themes that are usually conventionally discussed by political scientists. I will have to talk about economic scenario. I will have to talk about international relations. I will have to talk about a host of philosophical transformations. So even though I am talking about all of this complicated scenario, okay, my standpoint will be that of a sociologist, because I'm trained in sociology and I want this course to be rooted in the discipline of sociology. So we will be discussing globalization from a sociological theory perspective, or a theoretical perspective from the discipline of sociology. Okay, so what does it mean in very broad sense? Okay, what would be the kind of a standpoint? What is the kind of a entry point for sociology to understand globalization? And one of the most defining features of a sociological inquiry into globalization is that it is concerned, or it concerns with the transformations of social relations. Okay, those who have studied sociology know that one of the very important definitions of sociology is that sociology is the study of social relations. Okay, it's a very simple definition. Sociology is the study of social relationship. Now, it looks very simple, but the moment you try to locate, okay, the moment you try to place this particular word, social relationship, in different contexts, then it assumes a completely different picture. Because we know that social relationships in a very simple society, in a tribal society, it will be completely different from the social relationship in an advanced capitalist, industrial society. Okay, so the social relationship, which looks very simple in a simple society, assumes so much of complexity in a late modern industrial society. Okay, but our focus is exactly on the same. We are trying to understand how people interact with each other and how do they form relationship. What are the kind of a patterned forms of relationships? Okay, and how transformations taking place. So we are trying to understand what kind of transformations of social relationships that are brought in by this process of globalization. It looks a very simple question, but it's a very profound question. Okay, most of the theorizations on globalization revolve around this particular question. What kind of transformations of social relations, or what kind of transformations in social relations are brought in or by this whole process of globalization? And we are, of course, then concerned with the question of time and space. Time and space, are very important concepts in physics, and they are also extremely important concepts in sociology, because we talk about social relationship taking place in a given time, in a given space. And we will have very interesting discussion about space, place, all these things, flows, all these things. Okay, so we are trying to understand how this notion of space and time, okay, are undergoing rapid transformations in the era of globalization, and how that is having an impact on the subject matter of sociology, that is social relationship. Then another very important overarching theme that I want to put forward is this large debate on modernity and late modernity. Okay, I do not know how many of you are familiar with this debates. I will try to introduce some of these concepts later down the line. But modernity is the kind of a framework that we use to talk about the larger transformations happened initially in the West, especially in Western Europe, and later spread across the rest of the societies, mainly through colonization. So we are, for example, sociology is a modern science. Okay, we consider sociology as a modern social science. So now there are very important arguments that this particular modernity or some of the fundamental features of modernity has come to an end, and then we have moved into another realm, another phase, another situation, and there is no consensus what to call it. Okay, some people call it as post-modernity. Okay, so postmodern means you have gone past that of the period of modernity, and that's it. It doesn't say anything what exactly is there. Okay, it's a very powerful argument of postmodernity. You must have heard quite a lot of postmodern literature, postmodernity, and other things. But in sociology, there are not many important sociologists who agree with this argument of a complete postmodernity. Rather, they prefer to use this term late modernity, high modernity, liquid modernity, reflexive modernity, and a host of other terms. So we will touch upon, or we will rather elaborately discuss these theoretical concerns. Why that, say for example, scholars like Anthony Giddens and say Ulrich Beck, they are talking about late modernity rather than post-modernity. Okay, so this larger theoretical debate on modernity and late modernity will figure prominently in the course. And of course, a host of other important concerns like questions of identity, cultural transformation, consumption, religion, a host of other things will come into the discussion, because when you're talking about the globalization of society, globalization of social relationship, then these are the substantive themes. And I will have to make very judicious selection about the themes that we are discussing. So I will discuss maybe towards the end of the course. Okay. So this is a very general introduction to the course, and let us see what is the kind of course structure. I hope that you must have seen the course structure, and this is a theoretically loaded course. It's a theoretically heavy course. I would spending a lot of time discussing theories, because I believe that it is important that students understand the theorizations on globalization, because I could have really framed a syllabus with very less amount of theory but with more amount of illustrations and examples and easy readings. Okay, but I felt that may not be a very good approach, because once you understand the theories of globalization, then it becomes very easy for you to understand the illustrations. Okay, once you understand the theories, it becomes much easier for you to understand how globalization actually, takes place, or how globalization manifests itself in different fields. So that is why I have devoted large part of the syllabus to discuss some of the important theoretical arguments. And I hope that you will find it interesting. I hope that you will find it useful. I hope that you will not find it very, very difficult, and rather it might be engaging. So let us go have a very quick look at the kind of contents that are there in the syllabus. So the first one is introduction to the first week. We will have this introduction to globalization debates and social theory. So I will discuss. This will be a kind of an introductory, week where I talk about globalization and some of the important debates within globalization, a host of important themes, important players, the kind of so this first week will be more or less kind of providing you with a broad introduction to the whole field of literature on sociological literature on globalization as a kind of a window into the disciplinary debates. And second and third weeks are devoted to look at cultural globalization. Okay, what is the kind of transformation happening in the realm of culture with respect to globalization? And this is again a very fascinating theme, because mostly we understand globalization as globalization taking place in the realm of culture. Okay, you must have heard that your parents or elders saying that this new generation people, they are completely influenced by Western culture. Okay, we have lost our traditional culture, or India is losing our Indian culture, and everybody is becoming westernized. Okay, so Western values are sweeping across the country. So how do we understand the impact of globalization in the field of culture? So I am devoting 2 weeks for that, and in the first week I will give some introductory lectures on the concept of culture and globalization, and maybe one class on very important and controversial culturalist argument on this clash of civilizations. I hope at least some of you are familiar with that. And I will also discuss very important scholar George Ritzer and his theorizations on McDonaldization. Okay, very, very popular term that caught the attention of sociologists during 2000, and we will have that discussion on that. And in the second week, I will discuss extensively the scholar by name Arjuna Padure. I again hope that some of you must have heard of his name, a very prominent Indian anthropologist. Maybe I could say that maybe the most famous Indian anthropologist in the world, Arjuna Padure, basically from Tamil Nadu, born and brought up in Mumbai. Now he's in the US he was with several universities, but prominently mostly with the New York University. Okay, and also Ulrich Beck on cosmopolitanism. This cosmopolitanism is also a very interesting theme. Then the fourth and fifth week, we will discuss this globalization and modernity debate, the one which I just mentioned about modernity or late modernity, what kind of modernity that we are talking about in the era of globalization. For example, Giddens talk about a radical modernity. He talks about a runaway world. So what are we talking about under these debates between modernity, post-modernity and late modernity? And we will have discussions by Anthony Giddens extensively, David Harvey and Ulrich Beck. And I think that those discussions might require 2 weeks of time. So I have kept 2 weeks for discussing this larger theoretical themes and these important scholars. And then weeks 6 and 7 are again devoted to another set of important scholars who are concerned with the whole question of spatiality and networks, the whole question of space. Okay, and I am talking about Manuel Castells and Saskia Sassen, very important names in sociology and in urban sociology more particularly. So we will discuss them extensively. Manuel Castells more particularly his idea about this network society is very, very famous. So Saskia Sassen on Global City and Global Street. So we will discuss these two scholars. And this 8th week, we will discuss again Ulrich Beck, very important German scholar, and his idea of a risk society. Okay, and it's a very, very interesting argument that he has about this modern, this late modern world. He calls it as a risk society, and his name emerged very prominently in the recent times when the whole world has to face a COVID-19 pandemic, because Ulrich Beck specifically spoke about such a scenario. The whole world is facing a risk, and how that takes its own shape. Then the 9th week is devoted for a discussion on anti-globalization theorization. We will discuss this empire thesis by two important scholars, Negri and Hart, and also the kind of challenges to the globalization. Maybe I will try to include some of the very recent scholarship on the perceived decline or perceived crisis of globalization. Okay, and week 10 will have a kind of a substantive themes and illustrations. I think I will be ending this discussion on theories with the 9th week, and week 10 and 11. 11 will focus more on Indian scenario, but week 10 and maybe a couple of more lectures in week 12 will give you some very interesting illustrations of globalization taking place in very specific areas. Okay, for example, globalization and music, okay? Globalization and dance, globalization and tourism, globalization and sports, globalization and religion, globalization and leisure, okay? Globalization and consumption, globalization and terrorism, globalization and health, globalization and equality or inequality for that matter. Okay, so there are numerous very fascinating areas, okay, which you need to get an idea about what is the kind of a globalization literature on these areas. So we are spending 2 weeks at least to discuss these themes, and the final week, of course, is we will try to conclude the course with summing up the course and then providing a kind of a broad summary and overview. So this is the overall course structure. I think that I have been teaching this course at IIT Madras for the past several years, and I strongly believe that this really represents some of the most prominent theoretical debates and concerns about globalization literature. And what are the key textbooks? I will be following at least 2-3 important textbooks. One is an edited by George Ritzer, published in 2007, Blackwell Companion to Globalization. And this is a very important work, at least for the initial chapters. I would recommend you to have a look at this. It's an edited one, written by some of the best names in the field. And the second one is Lechner, Frank L. and John Bowley, published in 2014, again Globalization Reader. Okay, this again is a compilation of original essays by different scholars, again a very important source. Okay, then another book which I am using is written by Manfred Stager, published in 2013. It's titled Globalization Greatest Hits. So this is a very interesting book where he has taken up important essays by important scholars in the field, and then made a kind of a compilation. It's basically a compilation. It's not his own writing. Okay, so for example, there are essays by Saskia Sassen, by Anthony Giddens, by Appadure, and a host of people. So again, this will be a very important source for you. And yet another work would be by Andrew Jones, titled Globalization Key Thinkers. And this book introduces you to a host of important key thinkers in the field of globalization. And it's a very useful book because it introduces a thinker. It talks about their initial periods. It talks about their ideological influences. It talks about their important contributions, and it also has a critical evaluation of their contributions. And besides these textbooks, I will be using a host of original articles, Okay, so I will be using PowerPoint presentations most often, but in several occasions I will also use original articles. I will scroll, I'll display this article, I will scroll through the article so that you will be able to see the original articles, and I will be discussing a particular paper or a particular article by a scholar. Okay, and I hope that it's an important exercise that we do that you I will also try to circulate these materials to the students who are enrolled, and I think it's important that you develop this habit to read these materials, and maybe with the help of my lecture and explanation, and then try to understand that. And these are the reference books. Maybe a couple of them are original works, but important texts which we will have very specific reference to in this particular section. There is Manuel Cass's The Power of Identity, Coleman William and Alina Sajad, 50 Key Thinkers on Globalization, Anthony Giddens, The Consequences of Modernity, David Harvey, The Conditions of Postmodernity, and Moonley, Annabelle and Bestie Evans, Globalization Key Concepts. These are all kind of reference textbooks. But as I mentioned, I will be extensively using original essays, and I hope that you also learn to adapt to that kind of teaching style. So pedagogy, basically it will be a reading based discussion with the help of PPTs and original articles. So while PowerPoint presentations are quite helpful and handy in order to summarize a lot of things, but for several other areas, PPTs may not be a very appropriate tool. For example, if you want to discuss some very dense theoretical essay, PPTs may not be very appropriate thing. So I'll be using a combination of both PPTs as well as the original essays, mostly PDF PDF documents. I would have marked it in yellow so that you know which are the important sections, and I will be scrolling through those pages on the screen so that you also will be able to read through that when I give this explanation. And I will also use a couple of film clips, and then if possible a discussion with some subject experts. I'm not able to commit on that because of a lot of uncertainty associated with this particular times that we live in. Okay, so that's all I have to talk to you about this particular course. I hope you got some idea about the overall nature and the scope and the kind of course that you have enrolled in. I very sincerely believe that it will interest you. I hope that you will find this course useful and interest, and it will encourage you to read more, and then to collect material and to develop some kind of a intellectual and scholarly interest in this particular field. Very, very fascinating field on globalization. So with this word, let me conclude, and once again a hearty welcome to the course. I welcome all of you, and you are always welcome to communicate with me or with my teaching assistants or with the NPTEL officials. So make it as interactive as possible, and I wish all of you a good luck with the course, and let's see for the next class. Thank you.